Chapter 16. A Midnight Visitor. On returning home, Mr. Utterson went immediately to his safe. He took out the document sent to him by Dr. Lanyon before his death. Throwing off his coat and sitting himself in an armchair, he looked at the first page. The handwriting was wobbly, as if the hand that had written it was trembling. Utterson read these words: Dear Utterson, 4 days have now passed since I received a registered letter from Henry Jekyll that, and what followed, have aged me and weakened me so, that I must pray for enough strength to finish this letter. I swear that all I am about to relate to you happened exactly as I say. I was surprised to get a letter from Jekyll because I had just seen him that night before dinner, but since he had sent it by registered post to guard against its loss, I knew it must be important. The tone of this letter was highly emotional. Jekyll wrote, Dear Lanyon, you are one of my oldest friends. It's true we have had our differences regarding scientific matters, but I would never have hesitated at any time to help you if you had appealed to me, as I am about to appeal to you. Lanyon, my life, my reason, my honor, all depend on you. If you fail me tonight, I am lost. As soon as you have read this letter, go to my house. Poole, my butler, has received written instructions and expects you. He will be waiting with a carpenter and a locksmith. The door of my office is to be forced open. You will then enter alone. On the left side of the room there is a cabinet. Take out the second drawer from the top. I am so agitated that I cannot remember if I locked the drawer or not. If it is locked, force it open. In the drawer you will see some powders, a tube of liquid, and a notebook. I ask you to bring the drawer back to your house exactly as it is. That is the first part, and the easier of what I ask. If you start out as soon as you receive this letter, you'll be back home with the drawer long before midnight. I am making allowances for unexpected delays on the way. Also, I cannot estimate too closely how long it will take to break into my office, thus midnight is the hour I have set for a meeting between you and the messenger I am sending. It is a good hour because your servants will be in bed. I ask that you, yourself, admit my messenger, and that you receive him alone. You are to put the drawer into his hands. If these things are accomplished, you will earn my undying thanks. 5 minutes afterward, if you insist on an explanation, you shall have it. You will see that these strange arrangements were absolutely necessary. If you had neglected any part, my death or my loss of reason would be on your hands. Think of me at this hour, in a strange place, fighting a distress so black that no imagination can exaggerate it. And think further that it is in your power to roll these troubles away from me as if they had never existed, simply by doing as I have asked. Serve me, my dear Lanyon, and save your friend Henry Jekyll. P.S. I had sealed this letter when a fresh terror struck upon my soul. It is possible that the post office may fail me, and this letter not come into your hands this night. If that be the case, then do my errand tomorrow. At midnight, expect my messenger again. It may, however, be too late by then. If he does not come again, you will know that you have seen the last of Henry Jekyll. Lanyon's letter continued. I read this crazed letter several times. I felt that Jekyll had tipped over into insanity, but until that condition was proven, I would do as he requested. I went straight to Jekyll's house. Here his butler was waiting with the two workmen. He led us to Jekyll's office at the back of his laboratory. The carpenter shook his head when he saw the excellent wood of the door, but the locksmith had his turn first. It was fortunate that the fellow was an expert, for the lock was very difficult. It took him 2 hours before he could throw open the door. I entered alone, went to the cabinet, took out the drawer, and carried it into the laboratory. The butler packed some straw over it and tied a sheet around it. Then I got into a hansom cab and brought it home. Here I proceeded to examine its contents carefully. The powders were wrapped neatly enough, but not with the professional touch of a chemist. I could see that Jekyll had mixed and wrapped them himself. I opened one. It seemed to be simply a white crystalline salt. The glass tube was more interesting. It was half full with a blood-red liquid that had a strong odor. I guessed that it contained phosphorus and some powerful ether. But what other things I don't know. The notebook told me nothing. It was just a series of dates. Here and there the word double appeared, and once the words total failure I saw it as a record of one of Jekyll's experiments. It seemed like so many of his other investigations and experiments to have resulted in no practical scientific usefulness. I asked myself, how could these items in the drawer affect Jekyll's life so deeply? If his messenger could come to me, why could he not go to Jekyll's butler, as I had done? When I remembered that I was to receive this messenger in secret, I became uneasy. Even so, I sent my servants to bed, but then I loaded an old revolver so I wouldn't be completely defenseless. I heard my grandfather clock striking 12 at the same time that a gentle knock sounded on the front door. Opening it, I found a small man crouched against the porch pillars. "Are you from Dr. Jekyll?" I asked. He nodded, and I told him to come in. He gave a backward glance into the night. A policeman was walking his beat not far off, and this seemed to startle my visitor. At least, he entered rapidly. I closed my hand more tightly about the gun in my pocket and led him into the light of my office. He was no one I knew. He was small and looked sickly, and I hated him on sight. Another person might have laughed because his clothes were much too large for him. He had rolled up the trouser legs to keep them off the ground, but he could make no adjustment to the jacket that had sprawled across his narrow shoulders and hung to his knees. He was on fire with excitement. "Have you got it? Have you got it?" he cried. He even put a hand on my arm as if to hurry an answer from me. At his touch I felt an icy pang in my blood, and I stepped back. "You forget, sir, I have not had the pleasure of your acquaintance. Please be seated," I said. I sat down myself and tried to regain my usual manner of a doctor toward a patient, but it was difficult to keep down the horror that I had developed toward him. He answered with good enough manners. "I beg your pardon, Dr. Lanyon. My impatience has robbed me of politeness. I'm here at the bidding of your colleague, Dr. Henry Jekyll." I understood, and he paused and put a hand to his throat. I could see that in spite of his calm words, he was wrestling against an approach to hysteria. I understood. A drawer. I took pity on him and pointed to the drawer. It was behind a table and again covered by the sheet. "There it is, sir." He sprang to it, then stopped. He laid a hand on his heart. His face grew ghastly with apprehension. Fearing he was about to have a convulsion, I warned him gently. "Try to compose yourself." He turned a dreadful smile on me, then, shutting his eyes and with an expression of despair on his face, he suddenly plucked away the sheet. When he looked in the drawer, he gave a sob of immense relief. It was a moment before he controlled himself. Then he asked in a fairly normal voice, "Do you have a glass marked in ounces?" I got him the glass. Thanking me, he poured some of the red liquid into it and added a powder. The mixture began to smoke as soon as the powder melted. From red it went to deep purple. The smoking stopped, then the mixture bubbled and changed to a watery green. He nodded in approval and set the glass down on the table. Turning to me, he said, "Now it's time for your decision. Shall I take this glass and leave? If I do, you will know no more than before, but you will still have the everlasting gratitude of Dr. Jekyll to make up for your unsatisfied curiosity. Or, if you wish me to stay and do what I have to, a startling new area of scientific knowledge will be open to you. Fame and power not will be at your hand here in this room tonight. What you will see will stagger you. It's up to you to decide which it shall be." I tried to keep my voice from shaking. "I have come too far not to go further," I replied. "Very well," he said, "but Lanyon, you must remember your medical oath. You are under the seal of secrecy." He picked up the glass. "And now, you who have held such narrow medical views, you who have denied the value of another doctor's research, you who have laughed at your superiors, behold!" He put the glass to his lips and drank it in one gulp. He cried out, staggering against the table. He clutched the back of a chair and held on, gasping, his eyes popping. He seemed to swell. His features appeared to melt and blur. I was standing aghast, back against the wall, away from this horror. But then I screamed aloud. There, before my eyes, pale and shaken and groping before him with his hands like a man tossed up on shore by a hellish ocean, there stood Henry Jekyll. Why, he told me in the next hour I will not, nay, cannot write. It sickened my soul. My life as a man of science, as a healer of the sick, was shaken to its roots. In the night I cannot sleep, and in the day I sit terror-stricken. Death is close for me, I know, yet I can still hardly believe the shock which has sent me to my end. I will tell you one thing, Utterson. The creature who crept into my house that night was, by Jekyll's own confession, known by the name of Hyde, as he is hunted throughout England as the murderer of Sir Danvers Carew. Signed, Hasty Lanyon.